Hey, next up we have Sagi Eliyahu. Sagi, the CEO of Tonkean. Sagi, welcome. Great to see you.
Great to see you too. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Have a seat. And I apologize. Please help me enunciate your last name effectively.
Eliyahu.
Eliyahu. Okay. Very easy now. Yeah. Hey, what is it about Tonkean that does everyone know Tonkean in the Valley here? It's an amazing success story, right? You got some amazing clients. Really, some of the top clients in the world, right?
Indeed, yes. We've had a good last few years. We're working with companies like Google and Netflix and Workday and Lyft and many others, and helping them really bring new ways of how you run internal processes and how you build custom personalized experiences. So we're very fortunate to be working with those type of companies.
When you think of the enterprise, and all of these enterprise executives here struggle with current state to future state and enterprise architecture and the road ahead, and how do you create the right culture to create the right change? What do you think are the top few issues that enterprise executives are grappling with now?
Well, I think you guys talked about a lot of it today, during the day, whether it's the employee retention issues, whether it's just the amount of change that happened in the last few years, and honestly, looking forward, there's a lot of change still that might happen, microeconomics and stuff. So I think the short answer might be, what is your ability as an executive, as a big company, to adapt and to be able to leverage technology and actually embrace change versus, freaking out from it. And so I think there's a lot of new technologies, honestly, a lot of great companies here on the booth that I looked that can help with that. But it's actually start from a state of mind where you understand that being able to make the change and adapt is a competitive advantage.
You're a leader yourself of your own company, and we've all been through such an amazing journey over the last 26 months. What was your leadership style like when the pandemic hit? How's it evolved, and where are you today with it? Because super successful company, people are following you. There's a reason.
Yeah, it's interesting. We actually had our biggest growth during the last 2 years.
Nice.
And so, I think everyone kind of got forced into this remote world, right? And I think different stages of companies actually means different things. For us, I hired a new leadership team, fully remote, and some people that I've worked with every day. I only met a few weeks ago for the first time. But I think the important part is, and I think something that was in our culture that worked well with this new reality, is the concept of how do you focus on the things that actually matters, and how do you enable your people to do that. And even in the last panel, they finished with how grateful they are for spending time with their families. And I think that concept of if you are able to focus on the right things, you can sort of have more time to spend with the family. That's kind of the positives of this entire thing of not needing to commute and so on. So I think we embraced it and try to take the best out of it.
When you think about employee expectations in the enterprise, what's changing and where's the opportunity?
Honestly, I think the biggest thing that maybe people don't realize is that we moved from a local economy to a global economy. So when you think about it from any...
I agree with that, by the way, 100%.
Yeah, like any market, when you go from, you only sell goods locally to all of a sudden you can buy goods from anywhere, the thing that people don't understand is that it's not actually the price or the shallow things that matters, is the quality that becomes what matters. because now you're not limited to that certain area, so you're gonna go for the best quality in the best price too. But first, you're actually gonna look for the best quality. And so if you think about what happened in the the job economy, there's big resignation, there's a lot of compensation, discussions. But in reality, people now have the opportunity to no longer work in, their zip code. They can optimize for their personal life and really work anywhere. So I think it comes down to, obviously, why would you, work for someone? Like, what is the mission and goal? But also, what's the experience, right? And so we talked about, and this is part of the title of this, right, is like, what does the employee experience mean? I argue we should look at what is the customer experience changes when you move from a local to a global play. And the customer experience no longer means I need to have a good experience with, the checkout station in my local store because I'm no longer just, selling local. So the experience from a consumer perspective start with where you actually, the ads you see on Instagram all the way to, how you do a refund. And so similarly, when you think about employees, it's no longer like, what does a compensation look like? What is the benefits in the office? Do we have a pool table? But actually, how do I spend my time every day? What are the things that are important for my employer? What are the things that are important to me? Are those aligned? Do I have a career path? Do I have, the ability to make an impact? So I think this is maybe the most important change that happened, is that move from local to global.
So when you think of enabling technologies that enhance the employee experience, what are you thinking?
Well, if you take the same example, the understanding that you can't have a broken experience for a consumer is sort of like table stakes now. Everyone understands that. That wasn't necessarily true 15 years ago. And so similarly, I think when you look at employee experience, and especially for CIOs or technology leaders within companies, that experience that employee goes through to just do their job has to be thought through end to end. You can't just say, oh, okay, it's fine. They work on this thing, but if they want help from legal or from IT or from HR, I don't care about the experience there. Or if they need to ask for a vacation, or if they need to approve something for their own work, what does those processes look like, right? And so when we focus on internal processes, we're saying that this is almost like investing in the machine that builds the machine. Instead of only thinking about the end product, what is the internal experience is to actually get your job done.
So we have a lot of technical people here in the audience, being in Silicon Valley. How does Tonkean help that?
So when you do think about experience, it's more than just integrating data, and it's more than just providing new applications. I'm sure everyone here are kind of tired of the sprawl of applications that we all have. And so when you actually think about how people work, they have their own preferred way of working. And so I think, it used to be everything email. Now there's like Slack and Microsoft Teams. And I'm sure everyone here are also know that Slack is great until it's actually very chaotic. And so if you actually think about, okay, what do you do then? Do you pull people out of Slack, or Microsoft Teams the same thing? Do you limit them? How do you create guidelines? If you actually understand that that's something I like to call personal ROI. So there's a company ROI which is how we usually think. What is the personal ROI of everyone that is playing a role in that process? How do you cater to them? So what we help to do at Tonkean is we sort of merge together the best of integration, automation, and BPM, but allow IT to create this safeguards and out-of-the-box capabilities for actually operation teams. So legal operations, HR operations, finance operations, sales operations, to try to optimize the process on top of the things that you already have. So think about an employee onboarding process where the new employee might want to have a new UI, but everyone else don't really need to. Like, why does HR need to learn a new UI? You want the data to be in the HRIS. Why does finance need a new UI? They only live in email anyway. So like, how do you kind of orchestrate that experience. And so we've seen a lot of success when we do enable the business to contribute to this activity. You can create a tailor-made experiences that, double, triple, and sometimes, massively change the outcome of the employee experience, the customer experience, the sales velocity, and many others, sort of like top metrics.
Are there some case studies that are on your site or that you can illustrate here as an example today?
Yeah, so I think you can combine two examples. So for example, we have I think we actually have a case study even here on the booth for that specific case. It's a big medical company that does sort of medical brokerage for medical devices. And their ability, it was actually IT is the customer there, and they needed to create a program to streamline requests for COVID rapid tests distribution, right? And so when they talk to their partners, in the top four, they got back a 9-month type of estimations. Internally, engineering team was like that was going to take at least 5-6 months. But enable them to actually not create something new completely, but compose a new experience on top of the tool that they already have. They were able to be live in 2 weeks, and that's uncover $100 million in revenue potential for them.
Interesting.
And that's just one example, for a specific program. Other examples can be, how do you deflect IT requests or legal requests automatically and take, the 80% that are the same requests, but people, even created a portal and self-serve portal and so on. People never go there because, salespeople don't care about different URLs. They're gonna just email IT at, company.com or legal at company.com and just say, hey, I need this ASAP. I have a deal that has to close. So how do you actually connect that experience and say, you know what, that's fine. You can email, legal at company.com, and Tonkean would actually listen to that email, automatically understand where it needs to go, and if it can be auto-handled, just auto-handle it. And if it needs to, file a ticket, it will file a ticket. So again, the combination of automation, integrations, and sort of business process management.
So you've had a great career, Sagi. What is it about Tonkean that you're passionate about most and that you love most about your company and how you're helping your clients?
Well, honestly, it's we've actually been here for a while, and I like to say that 6 years ago when I was singing the same song for 6 years now, and 6 years ago no one understood kind of what we're talking about. And I think the market is definitely growing into a place where automation is no longer this extreme case for extremely technical people, but actually you can bring it with you. To me, it all comes back to how do we leverage software and what is the actual potential there. And so I think it's time that we look into how we expand the pie of who can leverage software. And so I think IT leading the charge and bringing technology. As a technologist, I think on any new technology, whether it used to be mobile, right? Everything was mobile first. So it's not everything should be mobile, right? But what should be mobile, right? And now there was AI in the middle, and now there's blockchain, and for us it's the no-code, low-code. It's not everything should be this, but what does have value there?
Yeah.
And I think we've seen a massive growth in operation teams and a massive impact when IT does build a bridge for the businesses to be able to maintain their own processes.
Well, I love the way you started this. You started with great consumer examples. And how many people can really say they've been blown away recently with a consumer experience, whether it be in a hotel or a restaurant or any wide range of online services? Not a lot of companies have really figured this thing out 30, 40 years into this .com whatever, right? Maybe Uber. Uber's pretty amazing, right? Totally frictionless, and they almost think for you, right? So when you go back to the enterprise, I mean, it's a daunting task. It's like a tidal wave or tsunami. How do you get started? And you're obviously playing with some serious companies like Google and Workday and others. And where do you get started, and how do you roadmap How do you get things, a pilot started and get some traction and some success?
So two things you can actually look at when you do look at those companies. I would actually reply with two things to take away from those examples. One, there's product managers for those companies when they build products. Guess what? Now every company has, again, legal operations, finance operations, sales operations. What is their job? Is literally to productize the process. It's like, okay, how do we do this? How should we do this better? The second thing is the methodology. So one thing that people might not actively think of is before the cloud or SaaS in general, it was hard to create software experiences in a real massive way because everything was still CDs that you need to send, and so iteration was hard. But when you change the delivery of software, all of a sudden the rate of innovation grew ridiculously fast. And the concepts like agile development that actually was invented in the 50s, all of a sudden became like a real thing that everyone can implement, and now everyone are just assuming that that's all like the baseline. But the point is that the way we run our internal processes and the way we leverage technology for the way we run our companies is still very much like a waterfall. We think about what do we need. We got a requirement for 6 months, and then we look for a vendor or we build internally for 6 to 9 months. And then it's been a year and a half at best before you see the light of day for the first thing, and then guess what? It's no longer relevant, right? So how do you create a better iteration is actually understanding the parallels of what unlocked this better experience and growth in the consumer market. And if we want to change, if we want to retain employees, if we want to stay competitive in this ever-changing environment, we have to be able to look at those differences and learn from them. And so I think when you do think about low-code, no-code, when you do think about process automation and so on, what is it actually brings to the table? It allows you to expand and expand who can do it, and therefore reduce the barrier to actually iterate, right? And you build the guardrails, and I know that's obviously the most important thing because you don't wanna give the keys to the car to a toddler,
yep.
Right? So you have to kind of create this playground and
right.
where they can play in a safe environment. But doing that, you are unlocking the opportunity of this iterative innovation.
Great stuff. I love it. Any questions for Sagi, folks? We have one right down here. I want to give you a leadership question, but we'll follow up with that. Down in front. No? Microphone's not working.
I'll be louder.
Yeah, there you go.
All right. So Sagi, as a product developer, right? I mean, I think there's a lot of people in this room who also been very global in terms of their product development teams. What would you say is the impact of a highly global, diverse team on the quality and the nature of the products that you're developing?
So the question is having a global, diverse team,
yeah,
and the importance of that?
No, important, and especially how does it reflect in the product?
And how does it reflect in the ultimate product?
How does it impact the building of the product or the result of it?
How the product's better because of that diverse nature of a global team?
Well, I think, the important part about diversity, in my opinion, is diversity of opinions. And so I think when you do have a more global team, you're actually opening up to a much more access to, you get yourself into a position when you can access a lot more diverse opinions and diverse skill sets. And I think what we've seen is that it allows us to bring experts in different fields, whether it's to our community, whether it's directly to our employee base, that we not necessarily would have done in our size of company or our stage of company, at this time. And it definitely allowed us to understand the customer better and faster. And so I think the opportunity of a global team is really thinking about what is actually going to move the needle the most, and just put it out there. And it's actually amazing the inbound that people are looking now everywhere. It's sort of like used to be, you have like, we're looking for X in San Francisco. You just remove the San Francisco thing, and then you get remarkable.
That's right, and
people.
I mean, and the pace of innovation. I mean, it used to be, most of the innovation tended to come from Western Europe and US. Today, if you look at, especially, I mean, things like collaboration, remote work, and so on, some of the stuff that's coming out from Asia and Africa is just truly amazing, right? And I'm beginning to see some of that innovation in the American products now. So I think certainly we've gained from that world experience in building better products.
I think customers too, by the way. It used to be that you kind of grow, you start in one area and then you go to this area and you kind of become global. I have a lot of friends, CEOs in sort of like early stage, and we all are globally selling, from almost day one, because, that type of boundaries is sort of like...
I've seen the customer expectations change. I mean, not only the customer expectation, product owners' expectations change. So I've seen people saying, hey, I was in India last week and, my colleague was able to trade shares on WhatsApp. Why can't I do it here, right? So that's the kind of innovation that's coming here because of a more global outlook, I guess. Thanks.
Excellent, thanks. Ralph? The idea here is it really is a global world, right?
Yeah, one of the interesting things we found 5 or 6 years ago, we woke up as a company and realized we had an aging workforce. So we put on a big move to hire early to career employees, get younger people in different ideas. And we did a great job. The problem was we then found we had a high turnover rate of early to career employees, right? They'd stick around 2-3 years and then they'd leave. So we had to, not only do we have to attract diverse talent, we have to make sure they want to stay. So how do you think about that? Like, it's great to be global, but if you're a US-centric company and the remote people don't feel like, how do you deal with that issue?
Well, I think honestly there's actually two parts for this. One part is what you're kind of alluding to is how do you make them stay longer? The other part of it, how do you make them more effective faster? Mm-hmm. So if you do know that they're only going to stay for 2-3 years, or let's say even 2 years, I would say invest in both angles. Invest in how do you make them stay 3-4 years versus 2, but also how does those two become more effective faster? Because again, we got used to, and I've worked in public companies before, starting Tonkean, so I have experience with that too. We're used to like 4, 5, 6 more years, and so onboarding for 6 months, that's fine, because you're gonna have them for a long time. All of a sudden, you're onboarding for 6 months, and then 18 months later, turnover. So I would say, on staying longer, I do think that alignment is key. So the perks is kind of being exchanged to, alignment with how I see me spending my day. Do I feel like I'm growing? Do I feel like I'm making an impact? If your company just makes a big impact, I don't know, curing cancer, that's easier. But but there's always ways to kind of look at what is that. How does your contribution contribute to the world, but also contribute to your own personal thing? And then again, the second thing is, how do you get them effective? I think the biggest problem, if you will, is patience. Like, for some reason, this entire, all those changes just affected people's patience into seeing things through. And so, I can't claim I know how to solve it, but definitely improving how you extract more out of someone's time. And I think it would both get you more value, but it also actually make them feel more accomplished and therefore might stay longer.
Yeah, one of the things we ended up doing was this idea people would enter like the shallow end of the pool and they'd slowly build in responsibility and so on. And it's like, we started putting people in the deep end of the pool day one, right? Let them contribute. There's no, senior people don't have a monopoly on good ideas or good talent, right? So we put them in the deep end of the pool. They can sink or swim and have a bigger impact, and that often is what makes them stay.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Great stuff, Ralph. In closing, Sagi, closing comments on today being perhaps the most interesting, best time ever to be in technology, and where the opportunity is. Thoughts?
Yeah, I think honestly, technology probably was always the best place to be in. I think there's a clear waves though, and I think we're definitely seeing a new wave now. And so I think whether it's things that around AI that finally seems like actually will bear fruit, whether it's the ability to use new technologies and and enable more people to use technologies, whether it's even the promises of blockchains and others. I think there's a lot of interesting points, but I would think about it as every decade has the two things that borrowing the same example, sink or swim, and I think making yourself aware of those and think about it in the sense of not just like spoon-fed the use case, but actually understanding what is the benefits of those technologies and how can I make a difference in the organization by bringing those in. I think that's the competitive advantage.
How can people learn more about Tonkean?
Tonkean.com. We have a booth here, and talk to the group. They're great people.
Great. Thanks so much, Sagi. Great
Thank
job.
you so much, man.
Appreciate it. Let's get a picture. Right here.
For more information, please visit hmgstrategy.com and keep up to date by following us on our social media platforms. Thank you.